Welcome. This is Her America. I'm your host, Chaida. The year is 2020 and the world is in chaos. And I find myself in the middle of it all. Pandemic, riots, policing. Those are the three words that I would describe my summer of 2020 because it was just such a chaotic season. It was quite a chaotic year, but if there was a portion of that year that was so chaotic, so disruptive, it would be that summer of 2020. At that time, I was posting videos on my Instagram, sharing about different society issues that were going on at the time. And one of those things was defunding the police. At that time, I just went through a revolutionary of my political views, and I was no longer identifying as a Democrat or a progressive, but found myself agreeing more and more with the right on issues, especially issues surrounding policing. At the time, and I called it, I said that defunding the police was going to be a terrible issue because it was going to have such a detrimental effect on communities that need policing in order to feel protected and secure. When I started posting these videos on my Instagram, it really took a life of its own. I called my series It's Her World, and I wanted to focus a little bit more on American issues, so therefore I created This Is Her America because that is where I'm from and this is my home, and I wanted to focus on issues that stem from home. Back in 2020, police brutality was a big topic. After George Floyd, the riots began. Black Lives Matter really took to the streets and started destroying cities left and right. And one of the big things that came from that movement in history was defunding the police. And the big question here is, has policing gotten any better since 2020? One of the things that people talked about in 2020 when the whole defund the police movement was happening was taking more initiative and putting more effort into community policing. I am very critical of the idea of community policing because I'm not sure how that's going to be implicated in society. We need policing. We need people who are trained and are equipped to handle high dangerous situations. So I'm not sure how community policing will help curb some of the issues that we see in society as far as crime and just dangerous people in general. I was looking at an article by the TCS Uplifting and was sharing new things that are coming in 2024 for law enforcement agencies across the country. In this article, it talks about different trends. One of those trends are predictive policing. And what that means is their police departments across the country are going to use different analytics and intervention models to help predict when crimes are happening so they can respond in a quickly and safe manner, especially in high danger areas. They're also going to look at more health and wellness initiatives and bring more mental health awareness into the department. So that could look like talking about psychology and bring more mental health professionals into departments, which I think could be a very good thing. I think with that job, it could definitely take a toll on the body and the mind. So I really think that's going to be a really great thing. One of those things that police departments are doing more and more days that I see is recruitment. And they're trying to find different ways in how to spark interest in people join the department, make them feel motivated. Another thing will be new technologies such as drones, facial recognition, robotics. Unfortunately, because of the weight of the protests and the riots in 2020, a lot of officials and leaders came out and vocalized how they were going to defund their departments. And because of the defunding, it created shortages in staff. A lot of police officers felt that disrespect from afar and up close, so they decided to quit and walk off the job. And because there were not enough uniforms in the streets patrolling, it also led to increasing crime, because as more police officers were leaving the job, you have more civilians being emboldened to commit crimes because there were hardly any officer or anybody willing to lay down the law. And on top of that, this created a lot of recruitment issues, because who wants to get up and become a police officer and want to be a part of a system that's supposedly bad and dangerous and evil? And this created a lack of support both on a administrative level, but also as a community, because you had lots of disruption in connecting police departments with the community. And so any officers or all the officers who were still on the job, even beyond the defunding the police efforts, it really created a whole new burden on them, because now they're being tasked with doing the job of maybe one officer doing the job of 3 officers, when they should have been consistent with the funding and actually invest and maybe creating new procedures and helping officers with more training. And if you're a police officer, I want to thank you for the service that you are doing. I know it is not an easy job, and it's probably a job you didn't probably wanted to do, but I thank you. Any police officers that are out there, I'm thanking you for doing this line of work, because I know that it is important. Being a police officer, you are a pillar in our community. And we need more people, more good men and women being in uniform, patrolling our streets, because they are the reason why the world is not in chaos in a day-to-day basis. So thank you. Research has shown that after previous years of defunding the police efforts, departments are trying to go back to refunding their police departments. According to some articles, Los Angeles PD, LAPD, has increased their budget this year, so they can bring in more officers to be trained after they reallocated funds to other community resources. In Baltimore, the Baltimore Sun highlighted how in 2020 the city council cuts $22 million from their budget, only to increase their budget by $28 million in 2024. In New York, NYPD, the New York Post highlights how only 29,000 officers remain on the job after budget cuts. And they also highlighted the fact that the fire department in New York City, FDNY, have also faced staffing shortages. So defunding efforts not only impacted police departments, but also fire departments. So you have first responders everywhere being impacted by defunding efforts, which is really sad. In Chicago, it is reported that this year they're going to be spending $2 billion in the police department after spending years defunding the police. I guess they see all the crime waves happening and they don't know. They just decided, well, we're going to go back to refunding them $2 billion worth. In Houston, it is highlighted by the Houston Chronicle how the department is $1 billion budget is not going to be enough to fill the staff shortages. And when it comes to staff shortages, we're not talking just police officer. We're talking about all the people who work in the police department, which is the personnel, the administrative staff, people who help assist officers on a day-to-day basis. That's who we're talking about. And all these police departments are facing major staff shortages, not just officers, but just people to help support officers and work with officers both on and off the street. In DC, it is also noted that this year by the CBS reported that Capitol Police is to ask Congress this year for over $840 million to be added to their budget. So as you can see, defunding the police didn't work because after a few years, you got all these different departments across these states trying to refund their police because they see the catastrophic effect that it had on his department and how so many officers were willing to walk off the job and leave behind their badge and gun so they can live a life in peace. That's why I always advocated for officers, because this job, it is not for the faint of heart. You cannot go into this line of work with no thick skin, because you're tackling on some of the most biggest society ills, or one of the ills on a day-to-day basis. And not only that, you're seeing the worst of what humanity has to bring. And I'm not saying do it for the money, but with this job, it should come with better compensation, better benefits. And not only that, but better support not from our community, but from leadership, from people in office and people who lead in these different departments. You'd be surprised how many leaders in different police and fire departments do not support their first responders. So going forward, I hope that we learn better how to be more easy on each other, because you just don't know what other people got going on. And I hope that in the future I can do more episodes focusing on policing in America. This has been a really good issue to dive more in and do more research in, and I'm just hoping so I can continue doing that. Well, until next time, this has been Her America.